because I think this is it. Om Yam Brahma Varnendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Devoishtavoy Vedai Sangapada Kramo Panshadoi Gayantiyam Samagaha Dhyanavashtita Tadgatena Manasha Pashantiyam Yogino Yashantam Navidu Shura Suragana Devaya Tashmai Namaha Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Our eternal salutations to that one who is the truth of life and existence, and whom the saints and seers call by various divine names. Our eternal salutations to that one whose glories are sung in the different religious traditions of the world, in hymns and songs, but whose universal nature no mortal mind can comprehend. Our eternal salutations to that one upon whom the devotees meditate in the shrine of their hearts, realizing an ineffable presence in their deepest contemplations. May he prompt our minds toward the path of truth and righteousness. May she reveal herself into our souls and dispel the gloom of death, fear, doubt, and darkness. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Shatagunam Vidyan Mananam Mananadapi Nidijasam Lakshagunam Manantam Nirvikalpakam. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Hearing about Brahman, the reality, is good. Taking teachings on Brahman is better. Meditating directly on Brahman is better still. But best of all is that meditation, in which all doubt about the nature of reality dies away forever. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishovahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other's, with the teachings, or with the world. And may what we study become a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Salutations to everyone here who is present in the SRV ashram here on the Big Island this afternoon on Sunday, and also to the live streaming audience. We welcome you. And we say aloha from Hawaii, which is a word that is universal in itself. It means hello, means see you again. Better to say that than goodbye, I think. It means love and all sorts of other connotations. But here we say aloha, but we also say amoha. Moha means delusion, so we'd like to get rid of delusion, amoha. And so we do that by Jnana Yoga, and we qualify ourselves in Jnana Yoga, as you know, because last week the first class was on qualification, and we began to look at this chart here, qualification is king. And it has a beautiful image there of Swami Vivekananda, a very nice picture for 1893, or that period when photography was just an infant science, very clear, and sitting in that beautiful ornate oriental chair. And not in his orange robes, as we were talking about before class began, not with his turban, but in a more kind of outfit that he created for himself that was a combination of Christian, Muslim, and Hindu in dress, and with the Nehru collar and the preacher's white collar and so forth. So a beautiful image of him, and with hair too, by the way, as if he was here among the Westerners who themselves really didn't have a monastic culture in them. Certainly not the kind of all-renouncing world sannyasin like he was. And we were saying he started his talk at the Parliament of Religions out by saying that he belonged to this oldest order of monks called sannyasins that went way back, long before Christ and long before Buddha. Sannyasin was a word that wasn't really heard or known at that time, and probably even today, as we were just saying, not that well known. But nonetheless, you have this idea of an all-renouncing soul who is only here for the highest good of living beings. Krishna calls that loka sangraha in the Gita, Bhagavad Gita. And of course, I hope you all realize that as we went through all or most of these last week, Tantra, Vedanta, Yoga, Samkhya, Kundalini Yoga, and so forth, that what's being implied here is the Gita, teachings from Sri Krishna, is the Upanishads, the teachings from the ancient rishis, and great non-dual scriptures like Ashtavakra, Samhita, Avadhuta Gita, which some of you have been exposed to by coming to SRV over the last 20 years we've been teaching, or longer. So we have been qualifying ourselves in this Jnana Yoga. But I hope you also realize that Jnana Yoga here, in my way of thinking, is the clarifier. We were just talking about this word khyati, which is dear to both the Buddhists and the Vedicists, the Hindus, the Vedantins. It means clarity, and so you must have this clarity first in philosophical perspective. In other words, you don't want Bhranti Darshana, diluted way of seeing, diluted perspectives. Bhranti means delusion, not seeing correctly, see. But you want this clarity of seeing, and then you begin to do your practice and everything goes very well. You can intensify, and you can have greater realizations without the imperfections that will accompany a mind that hasn't had that purificatory process completed. So as much as possible, clarification is very important. And so when we say this is qualification in Jnana Yoga, which is the wisdom yoga, we mean basically that it's also clarification in Bhakti Yoga. That is, you'll know what to love and who to love. That is, divine reality and how to love by first clarifying the field with Jnana. It's also clarification for work, because thought is father to the deed. So you have to have this clarity of mind before you enter into work, so that what comes back at you in the form of fruits is taken in the right way, with the right perspective, without attachment and religious shopkeeping and things like that are going on in the world in the name of religion. Also clarifies meditation, the fourth and final yoga. We'll look at the four yogas today as we go along, because we're working our way down this first box of Vedanta to show what really the bullet points are. So the four yogas are coming up. So this is how I'm sort of prefacing this class, is that and those 2 points. Basically, when we say qualification, we mean on all these levels, and we also mean that Jnanam clarifies all the other yogas. So that's why Vivekananda brought it in the form of Vedanta in 1893 when he came to the West. And there's a quote, and I don't know it verbatim, but basically I can paraphrase it, in which he said that he had looked at the West where he was going and found out about them and what their thinking was and so forth, where they were in their spiritual evolution. And he looked at all the darshanas of India, yoga, tantra, and so forth, samkhya, And he thought what they were most ready for Vedanta. That's what he wanted to bring. So he selected the Vedanta specifically to bring to Europe and America because he felt like we were very active people, Rajasic it's called. But the Rajas was beginning to take a turn towards Sattva. He called that pink. Rajas is red, Sattva is white. See, or you could say yellow. But if you mix those two, then you get this kind of pinkish color. So we're talking about a mixture of balance and activity. Unfortunately for us, when we get through with our activities and we want to go towards balance, we sleep instead of study. We enjoy pleasure instead of austerity. So pure sattva would be a different turn. If you took your activity, your energy, your vitality, and you staved off that tendency to go towards sleep or towards pleasure mongering, pleasure loving and so forth, and instead you took that energy and you placed it towards study of scriptures and devotion to God, increasing devotion to God and meditation and those things, then you'd be on the track that he would have loved to see, and that he was placing his devotees' feet on too. He had some very upper crust Westerners that followed him, that immediately recognized his message, like Nivedita and others, and Goodwin and some, both men and women, disciples who immediately saw him and heard him and knew that was the truth and followed him. They had no doubts about it, and they stayed with him their whole life. But the other masses in America in 1893, it was big tent revivals with fundamentalist Christians dumping Bibles on one side, and on the other side it was having seances with crystal balls in your living room to try and contact your dead ancestors. Well, at least you believed in ancestors, see. But in the middle of those two, rock and a hard place, is science. And he met Nikola Tesla and other people of the time who were promoting the scientific view. And then, of course, the upside of that is that it begins to tell the truth about your origins on the physical level. But the downside of it is that it connects you too much with the body, like, say, hominids, monkeys and apes and so forth, as if you had to go to the zoo to see your ancestors, my teacher used to say. But actually, if you want to go to see your ancestors, you shift levels in your consciousness and you go into the ancestor realm. And then you go into the realm of the mind, intellect, and so forth, the realm of the deities. And so both of these views can go side by side. That is, the scientific evolution and the cosmic involution can go side by side. I created a brand new chart last week on that, which I will show you probably next week. So all of this is a sort of a precursor, in my usual way, warming up to the subject, about bringing Vedanta to the West and why we started with this first box. But before we get deeper into the four fruits, the four treasures and the six jewels, because the four fruits is also important teaching in Vedanta and Tantra. I was reminded that we didn't really look at Vishishta's yoga last week. We went all the way around here, and I thought we had accomplished looking at all of these. Darshanas is a way of saying this. Yoga is a darshana, Vedanta is a darshana, Samkhya is a darshana, Buddhism is a darshana. Whether orthodox or non-orthodox, doesn't matter. They all come from India, and they all have something very profound and connected to relate to. So a darshana just means, it's very much like that word khyati. It means clarification. It's a clear way of seeing, a clear path in which you can walk to get back to the truth if you've gotten off the path to truth. See, if it's become obscured, because it'll never be lost or destroyed, it's just simply gotten obscured. That's one of the reasons why Vivekananda brought Vedanta to the West, to America, is because we were thinking too much in terms of eternal damnation and that I'm a sinner. And he knew that wasn't the truth, so he wanted to bring back the idea of eternal perfection rather than eternal sin. So your nature was perfect by nature. And he said if you could give that to the Westerners, then they would begin to endear themselves with noble ideas again. They would start to take to these darshanas and walk them. Some would be Vedantists, some would be yogis, some would be Tantrasists, worshippers, and however way you did it, he said that was fine with him. But he focused on the Vedanta because of that need for clarification, particularly in the West. So yoga, Vishishta's yoga, Lord Vishishta was a very profound soul that lived way, way back in Ram's time. We know Sri Ram was one of the earliest avatars even before Krishna. So Lord Vishishta, as a hoary old luminary, was also a priest of the court of King Dasaratha, which was the father of Sri Ram. Ram, as a teenager, took teachings from Vishishta, and Vishishta had to clarify things for him at that time and remind him of the Dharma and the teachings on suffering and how to transcend it. Same as Buddha, some 1,000 years later, had to come up against this idea of suffering and how to transcend it and give you the Eightfold Path. So it was all very much connected, and as if time didn't make no never mind. Thousands of years could pass, that Dharma was still there, people were still lost, and they still needed to find the Dharma. Unfortunately, that's the way it is here, and it's the way it always will be. Vivekananda used to say, a good world? There's no such thing. It's like saying hot ice. It's not going to happen. So people who are into transforming the world, they need to learn a lesson about how to transform the mind. Because if you transform the mind, the world will then reflect nothing but Brahman. If you don't transform the mind, then it reflects nothing but suffering, or what we call Maya, or what Buddha called Mara. It's rounds of birth and death and ignorance without ever knowing the truth, without even coming near it. So to wake up spiritually, Vivekananda wanted this Vedanta brought. And Lord Vishishta was handing it out to Sri Ram in the ancient times, hand over fist, in droves, in flows. Flows of wisdom particles, I like to say. And these wisdom particles were like the eukaryote of biology, you see. They were the complete cell. First time a complete cell came. But they weren't on the physical level. They were on the spiritual level. They were cells of wisdom, and they had power. And if you collected them like iron filings around a magnet, then you could penetrate through appearances, and you could realize your divine nature and transcend time and space right there in the moment. You would be in the eternal moment, which somehow you lost. So you shifted just a little bit out of the eternal moment, and now you're in what? Beginnings, middles, and endings. Past, present, and future. The three phases of time. How did you slip out into that and out of the eternal moment, which is the witness of the three phases of time? Tri Kaladarshi. The witness of the three phases of time. I have to use 10 words in English to try and communicate that there's a witness. But you just say Tri Kaladarshi and you got one word in Sanskrit, ancient, that if you say to some akamai, using a Hawaiian word, somebody who's in the know, then automatically they'll go Tri Kaladarshi, yeah, that's Shiva. He's the witness of time. And that's me too. I witness time. So I live in the eternal moment. Which, by the way, folks, is not the present. You say I'm living in the present, then you're still making an error. You want out of the past, present, and future. That's the point. The present, again, is where you enjoy. Sattva, right? Where you have enjoyments. You spend your time not studying, not meditating, and doing what's good for you, but enjoying things that are around you in a balanced state of mind. And you're a healthy animal, but you're not a realized soul. And no amount of asanas and fine yogic clothes and incense burned around you is ever going to waken you up to your predicament. In that way, you're going to have to clarify, and you're going to have to qualify. Clarify, qualify, qualify, clarify. And that's precisely what Vishishta was doing for Sri Ram at that time. And it was easy in Sri Ram's case because all the Dharma was just right below the surface of his young mind. Just, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, just brush off a few pebbles and there's the gold shining. See, that's the person who's very close to enlightenment all the time, whether they're in the body or not. But in others, you have to dig with a shovel for days. The gold is buried under mounds of earth, you see. So it's a bloody drag, as they say. See, so much problem to try and awaken people to something which is their own true nature that they've lost long time ago, and buried under mounds of earth. That is, mounds of karmas, mounds of samskaras, lifetimes in ignorance, upbringing in ignorance, societies and ancestors and their karma, going to heaven and earth and hell and so forth and so on, when you don't go anywhere at all. You're always in one place, all the time, beyond time. See? So Vasishtha was clarifying this for Ram, and if you look into Vasishtha's yoga, here's the bullet points, because that's the one thing we missed last week, so let's catch up on that. And there you see, at the bottom of this beautiful qualification, this king chart, that Vasishtha pretty much focuses on Atmagyan, which is pretty much, again, what I've been talking about this whole first 15 minutes. Atmagyan, Gyanam, special wisdom about your Atman, your true nature. Soul with a capital S. Now the soul with a small s goes from heaven to earth to hell. That's the mind, really. What Vedanta thinks of a transmigrating soul, that's the mind. You're going out to waking state, into dreaming state, into deep sleep, and coming back to dreaming, and coming back to waking every 24 hours. And you don't know it. You think this is your normal state of living. You see 24-hour days and so forth, and one lifetime and it's all over. But you don't know that these are phases of your consciousness, and you're moving through them, and as you move through them, you're the witness of them. That is, you're taking them on, and they're moving through you, but you're staying in one place. That would be living beyond time and beyond space, right? Space flows through you, time flows by, but you're just viewing it from a non-dual standpoint. It's one of the first things Vivekananda told us when he got here. Just, know this, there are two things here, Purusha and Prakriti, if you want to go to the Samkhya. And of course Vasishtha was teaching this back then to make it clear for Ram. There are two things, Purusha and Prakriti, as far as Samkhya is concerned. The sentient spiritual soul and the insentient material energy, nature and soul. And know that you're different from that. You see, separate these two. Separate the wheat from the chaff, as Jesus was saying. And then live in this true nature. See, that would be how he would express it to us. And the best way to do this, the quickest way to do this, as Vivekananda would tell us, was to exercise Jnanam. That is, as we were looking at here last week, the Viveka and Vairagya quotient. Discrimination between the real and the unreal, and withdrawal from the unreal. So, in that way, Atmagyan is the greatest clarifier as far as Lord Vasishtha is concerned. So you qualify yourself in that if you're a student of Lord Vasishtha's. Atmagyan will be on your mind all the time. What is my true self? It's not the transmigrating soul that moves through nature. That's mind, intellect, ego, and thought moving through an external nature, external and internal nature, Prakriti in an unmanifested and manifested form. But I'm not that. I'm the soul that's seeing this body-mind mechanism move through nature. See, I'm witnessing that every lifetime, but I'm connecting my consciousness more with the movement, called evolution, than I am with the non-movement, which you get to through involution. So Atmagyan is going to swiftly involute you to your true nature. One lifetime should do it. In fact, Vivekananda said 6 months ought to do it. You should be able to become a yogi in 6 months if you study Patanjali's system. See, Lord Patanjali, the father of yoga, affectionately called, put together the 8-limb system in about 140 AD, which was 600, 700 years after Buddha. And another 670 years Shankara would come. Another 607 years later Chaitanya would come, and then another 500 years or so Vivekananda would be on the scene. So you have these souls bringing these systems to you every age. Age meaning not a long, huge 4,320,000,000 year old age, but a 500-year age, you see. So that you have about 4 or 5 lifetimes to get it together. But it would be better if you had done it in 6 months. See, hear the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Right? Wake up right now. There's no reason why you shouldn't be ever awake. Our founder in SRV called that yogic insomnia. You asked him once, "What's your condition?" He said, "I have yogic insomnia." So I'm in an ever awake state. My teacher used to love that song from India which goes, "A man has come to me from a land that never sleeps. Now all my dreams have become radiant meditations." So those are two very beautiful lyrics for a song, do you think? Very beautiful lines. So a man has come to me from a land who never sleeps as my guru, and he sang me a song that lulled sleep to sleep forever. It made doubt doubt itself. It made fear afraid of itself, and it puts death in its own grave. So those are the things that are on the mind of an Atmagyani. See, Atmagyani, someone who's taken up, their whole mind and energy is taken up in realizing their true nature. Call it self-realization, call it enlightenment, call it moksha, call it mukti, call it kaivalya, call it nirvana, call it nirvikalpa, call it kundalini yoga, awakening at the seventh center of Sahasrara. Whatever you want to call it, there's a name for it in all these darshanas, and it's on the mind of the seers and sages. They want that first and foremost. And it's the same as saying you should love the Lord thy God with all your mind, all your heart, and all your soul. See, that kind of dedication is on the bhakti level what qualification is on the Jnani level, for the Jnani. So you steep yourself in it. Just consider yourself a tea bag. See? And there's a cup over there with hot water in it called the Dharma, and go steep yourself in it. See? And then drink yourself. See? And then realize yourself. Add a little milk and honey if you want, called bhakti, but do it, through Jnanam, because it's the quickest way. It'll clarify, and then you can love, meditate, and act. You see. There are other orders in which to do the 4 yogas, but this is the one my teachers and I recommend as the quickest, the swiftest. Bhakti, dancing and singing and all that, we call that the slow boat to China. Actually, the slow boat to India, in this particular case. It'll get you there, but it's a scenic route. If you want to truly see your true nature with this eye open as Christ did, and you want to put death to death, ignorance in ignorance, fear afraid of itself, doubting itself, then you'll want to wake up right away. You won't bide any interruptions. See, it's going to have to be an uninterrupted, unalloyed flow of your consciousness from the mind to Brahman. See? Uninterrupted flow. Taila Dara Dhyan, called, like pouring oil from one beaker to another. See, unbroken flow. What else does Vashishta talk about? The 4 sentinels. He was probably the first one to really bring that teaching out of the eternal Dharma of India, Sanatana Dharma, of 4 sentinels. So you want to go into this city with 4 gates and have 4 friends that can let you in and out of the gate at any time of day or night. So that's basically it. So 4 sentinels are very important. I have a chart on that we can show you later, so we won't get into it too deeply, but you'll want to have sadhu satsanga, for instance. And peace, shanti, is important. Santosha is important, contentment. You see, so these are very much like the 6 treasures, which we'll look at soon. We were interrupted by that lack of time, loss of time last week. What else does Vashishta recommend? Karma samskara vinasha. He is that great soul who taught you about the origin of disease being in the mind. It was one of the things he accented. All diseases starts out in the mind, not in the body. You don't get a cold from going outside and exposing yourself to wet and cold weather. You had a cold before you went outside and put on your coat and got wet, you see. And your inner immune system wasn't strong enough to put it off. So much people talking about outer immune system, taking all these pills and strengthening my outer immune system. That's not going to do you any good if your inner immune system isn't intact. Because the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, whose pictures are right there on the altar behind us, walked in the Himalayas barefoot in the winter. You imagine that? And they didn't get colds. They didn't get sick. Vivekananda was saying, here in the Himalayas, I don't have diabetes. See? I don't have any disease. I have the fire of yoga and a good scripture with me, and that's all I need. I can sit in the snow and read that, you see. Because why? Because their titiksha was intact. Titiksha. Forbearance. They were beyond cold and heat, pleasure and pain, life and death, virtue and vice, happiness and sorrow. They were sannyasins, so they got those behind them. Get thee behind me, you see. The things that bother me. Why should I have to put up with those? I will get them behind me. See. So forbearance was very strong in their case. But what we're talking about here when we say karma samskara vinasha, as far as diseases goes, is that all diseases come from your mind. Why? Because you have impressions there about disease. Now, disease isn't just a cold or diabetes or cancer. Disease is also mental, and disease is also vital. Right? If your vital energy flowed, then your body would be fine. But because your vital energy gets knotted up with granthis, that's another Sanskrit word that we don't have any equivalent for, vital knots in the life force, how could you say it in English? Then you get the physical disease. It's rather like stepping on a hose and then no water can come out the other end. It's your nerves that are getting constricted, right? Because the prana is not flowing along them. So breathe, for one thing. Get some oxygen to the brain, because that at least opens the physical nadis, physical nerves, and you can get more light that way. But you're going to have to go deeper than that. Man does not live by bread alone. You're going to have to go deeper and open up these inner nadis, which are clogged up with impressions from past lifetimes. Another word we don't have an equivalent for, except maybe say complex, is samskara. If you say samskara, then you know it's mental. It's a block in the mind, and in the subconscious, unconscious mind, if you want to borrow those terms. But in the subtle body, in the sukshma sharira, we call it, and we do have words for it in Sanskrit. And those clogs are there because of impressions left from past lifetimes. There's no doubt about that, you see. No pulling of punches, see. Is that this is why these troubles are here upon us now. Holy Mother said very nicely in her lifetime, Sri Sharda Devi, I don't know why I'm getting these diseases like rash on her body and malaria, because I've never done anything wrong in my whole life. But she was getting these diseases because people were bowing and touching her feet. For one thing, she'd get rashes when impure people bowed and touched her feet. See? And so she had to suffer for others. See? It's a kind of vicarious atonement taken to India and proposed in a different way. That is through samskaras. So vinasha means to destroy those things. And you do that by clarification, for one thing. If you have samskaras in the mind that is blocking this wisdom, then you have to get in there and destroy the blocks so that this wisdom becomes clear to you. Your single eye can open and you can know the truth. Otherwise, there's blockages in the lower spiritual vortexes, in the lower centers, you see. And energy's not getting through. It's like somebody could listen to a great teacher teach all day and not wake up. Other person could hear just a few sentences and remember their true nature. How is that? Then enlightenment can come in 6 months, but it takes 6 lifetimes for someone else. Because they're really aware, they're present, they're desirous of knowing the truth. See? And first they know that the truth exists, and someone's told them about it, and now they go about walking a path. Any of these paths will do, you see. All of these great beings concur. Vedavyas, Patanjali, Lord Kapila, Lord Vashishta, Lord Buddha, they all concur with one another, generally speaking, on the most important points. So, karmas that cause impressions in your minds, you want to go in and alleviate those. Neutralize those karmas. At least attenuate them. That means hold them in abeyance somewhere, you see, so that they're not active anymore. So you have time to breathe. You have time to think. You have time to study. You have time to meditate. You have time to worship. You have time to act for the right reasons, for the best results. See, at least put them in abeyance for long enough to do that. See. Slow things down in your life. As running yourself ragged in circles all the time, you're never going to get this kind of repose that's going to allow you to hear the Dharma in the right way and put it into operation, put it into practice. Your whole life will radiate in an all-new way when the Dharma is placed in the right compartments inside of your mind. He also talks about the 5 akashas, extremely important teaching in Vedanta, because in all these darshanas, contribution from Lord Vashishta about the 5 kinds of space. As we say, the 15 million year march of the hominidae, you see those monkeys to apes to humans and so forth, the hominids to the humans, is on the physical plane only. That's what we don't realize, that we're talking about a form that's transforming itself, see, speciating from nature by species. So that can be allowed for. Sure, we can prove that by certain carbon dating, and we can dig in the earth and we can see how this has come about. And it's an interesting aspect of aparavidya, lower knowledge. But what you're overlooking is the higher knowledge there, the higher wisdom, that you never were a form, that evolution's a myth, that time's an illusion, and that space has 5 forms in it, and you're overlooking 4 of them. That's the word akasha in Sanskrit again. Huh? Akasha? Okay, how about loka? Huh? Buddhakasha? What are you talking about? No, we don't know, you see. How about matter? Oh, okay, now I'm comfortable, you see. Physical space, with many planets in the air and around us, right? Suns. I understand that a little bit, you see. That's external life. But Christ told you here on this earth, and the message found its way here to the West, through Europe, into America, that birds have nests and foxes have holes, but you have no place to lay your head here. To grant unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but take unto yourself what is the Lord's. That those who love their life will lose their life. Those who hate their life will get it again in eternity. How about that one for a slap in the face? A wake-up call. See? So Christ was a sannyasin in India's view. See, a wandering free soul. He didn't have a religion attached to him at the time, and you probably should have never attached one to him. Should have left him free as he always is and always will be. So in terms of akashas, Christ was walking all 5 of them, you see. So is Lord Buddha. So are all these great souls who founded these systems. They're walkers of the sky. Whose phrase is that? See? It's Lord Vashishta. If you get on the Dharmic wheel, you'll have to go to him to find out about the walkers of the sky. Isn't it a nice phrase? So it means somebody left this physical sky. Walkers of the sky doesn't mean to take some rocket ship up to some dead planet somewhere, hoping you'll find some mystery, see, or some resources that you don't have. which are in plentiful down here, but you just won't share them with each other. You're running away from your problems, you see. Stay here and move inward, not upward. I think one of the stupidest things you can see is somebody going like this or praying up, you see. Athletes do that. They come to a race or a fight or something and they go. Thousands of people are watching on some YouTube thing and they're going, yeah, I want to thank my Savior, Jesus Christ. Ridiculous, you see. He's not up there. He never was. He's in here. He's your true self, and you have to go inward to find him. He's waiting for you. Have you ever found him up there? Well, of course, science isn't looking for him. But the whole point of this is walker of the skies does not mean the first Akasha, Bhutakasha. Go ahead and walk it all you want, or rocket it. See, jet yourself up into it and see what you find. But you'll never find divine reality up there. In fact, you're looking for 5 elements up there, you'll probably only find 3. Water and air are going to be missing. And so far, they have been in all our search. So you're pretty much fine right here, you see, with all 5. 5. 5 toes, 5 fingers, 5 senses, 5 elements. Contemplication. I'm happy with that, thank you. Contemplication process. Whose teaching was that? Dun, 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 dun. See? All of these teachings had sources. People who accented them. They didn't invent them or discover them. They had to go rediscover them maybe. But they all had sources in the eternal Dharma of India. Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana. That was the source for it all. That just means eternal Dharma, the eternal pathway of all time, you see, beyond time. So if you're talking about 5 Akashas, you're only looking at one, and what's wrong with you? The next Akasha is the Akasha of vital energy. And if you're going to relegate it simply to how I breathe in and out, or how I digest my food, or how I excrete my food, or how my organs pump and act involuntarily, how my eyes blink and so forth, then you've relegated the second Akasha to the physical alone, you see. That is, the Bhutakasha, the Pranakasha have no difference. There's no distinction in that. You've wrapped them all into one package, and you don't have the knowledge of them being independent of one another. Interconnected but interdependent. So you need to move inside to the Pranakasha. Come to find out that whether you're doing it scientifically, philosophically, or religiously, it's the same thing. Scientifically, you'll let go of your grasp on the atomic particle, finally. That is, on death, on violence, on too much power for you to handle. If you're doing it philosophically, you'll let go of the Bhutakasha. If you're doing it religiously, you'll find your ancestors. Same thing, right? This next level of space inside of you has those for you to encounter. Depending on what your temperament is. If you're looking for your ancestors, there they are, right inside of you. Don't you always hear that? My father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, they never died. See, they just went inside of me. I still feel them. I still remember their image. Their form still persists. I have pictures of them. I also have a picture in my mind of them. They're still present. Sometimes they talk to me. Sometimes I see them in my dream when I walk the skies. So, a little long-winded about this because when we come to this teaching, whenever we get to it, there will be a chart on 5 little Russian dolls, all held back inside of each other. You see, and that's the 5 Akashas. That's exactly how the Akashas work. And also the same in terms of the 5 sheaths or koshas, the wrapping around the Atman. This is part of Atmagyan too, is you have to know what encloses your true nature. what obscures it, how to penetrate through it. First you have to see it in order to penetrate through it. So 5 Akashas, and a very important teaching accented by Lord Vasishta early on, and really ran through all of these. You couldn't get far from it if you took up yoga or Vedanta or Buddhism to find out about these different levels of Akasha or lokas inside of you. The 3 worlds, for instance, were the gross, the subtle, and the causal. A, U, and M, Om, were all based upon that idea of different kinds of space within you. Your dream state is a different kind of space within you, but you're not conscious enough to make it into radiant meditations. What did the song say that I just quoted? A man has come for me from a land that never sleeps. That's these inner realms, see. And now he told me the truth, and all my dreams have become radiant meditations. I don't dream anymore. I see. In other words, there's the dream and there's the dreamer. I'm the latter, you see. I'm not the dream. When people dream, they think they're the dream. So there's no consciousness in it. Just like you thinking you're matter. Is there any consciousness in that? I'm the body. Was there ever any consciousness in you thinking that you were matter? In Tantra, it's the first of 16 evolutes of Maya. It's that Deha Jasa Hamkara. I think I'm the body. I believe I'm the body, you see. Well, that's just calling yourself matter. That's the first mistake in philosophy, in Tantra. So you will have to see yourself covered by 3 or 4 others, finer layers, you see. Like the seed of a coconut's covered by 5 layers of the outer shell, you see. Different levels. And you're going to have to penetrate through them to find that essence, that inner essence. Drink a little milk of the Anandamaya Kosha along the way, see. So that covers 4 bullet points of the yoga of Lord Vasishta. All deference and reverence paid to him. So now we have looked at this chart, and we've looked at it from the standpoint of competency. How can I become competent to qualify myself in these? I'm going to have to spend some time in the Gyanakasha. See, one of these 5 Akashas, I'm going to have to find myself away from the Buddhakasha, deeper than the Pranakasha of the ancestors, deeper than the Manakasha where the mind and all its projections are going on. I found myself to the 4th level of awareness called the Gyanakasha, or Chittakasha. This is where intelligence resides. Buddhi. So there I will make my way there, and I will study these systems that are lodged there. Like gold nuggets lodged in earth, in mountains. These Dharma nuggets are lodged there inside of the Buddhakasha. Buddha Kasha, I was thinking, inside of the Gyanakasha, Atma Gyanakasha if you want. So these are very important teachings. Now, we want to segue back into this teaching, which we got halfway through, because we were looking at sadhana chatushtaya, right? The 4 jewels and the 6, 4 treasures and the 6 jewels, we like to call it. We looked at the first 2 already, viveka, vairagya. Remember, we were doing it by singing this song. Esheche nutana manas dek bijodi aichule. Esheche nutana manas dek bijodi aichule. Tar viveka vairagya juli. Viveka vairagya juli. Dui kante sada jule. Tar viveka vairagya juli. Viveka vairagya juli, dui kante sada jule, esheche nutan manas dek bijoli aichule. A new man has come. Esheche nutan manas. Almost sounds in English what it is. Nutan manas, a new man. Manas means mind. A new kind of mind has come among us. If you want to see him, come with me. But be prepared to see a man who has no possessions. The only thing you'll be able to detect on his person is a shoulder bag. And if you ask him what's in it, he'll show you. Discrimination and detachment are the only things he has. That's what the song says, first verse, you see. This new man is Sri Ramakrishna. This was written by Devendranath Mazumdar, one of Sri Ramakrishna's householder disciples. When you see a great soul like that, you have to go somewhere and write a song about him, or a poem, or an Upanishad. Now there's the Ramakrishna Upanishad. You see, some devotee went and wrote a whole Upanishad on the master, not even 100 years since he had passed away. So, find a great impression made, a great samskara, you see, made. And this is one you don't have to destroy. This is one you want to have effloresce inside of you, you see. The more you can think about a great soul like that, the better for you. So that song is talking about Viveka Vairagya Juli. He holds in his shoulder bag two things. Viveka Vairagya Juli. And those are, of course, the two V's or the two D's. So we went through that last week, and you should know it already. We took the first quote. That one in the middle, though, by Vishvamitra. Now you're speaking about Vashishta. There was another rishi living at the time of Vashishta named Vishvamitra. And he was a very wise soul, an ascetic in the woods. That is, he gave up the world and became an ascetic in the woods. And this is what he says about Viveka Vairagya. Dejection due to loss and disappointment at not gaining the objects of one's desire are only stepping stones to Viveka Vairagya. We were talking here about, before class started, with the live stream audience joining us, about young men and young women coming who are admitting that they're tired of the world. And they don't want to do jobs and money and be under evil bosses and corporations that are polluting the planet and whatever else is going on in the workplace. They don't want that anymore. And in fact, they have a higher leaning when they hear the Vedanta or any of these darshanas, that maybe they want to dedicate their life to truth, to finding the truth. How about that? What a novel idea, you see, that I should do that. Maybe I should get enlightened. No, I guess not. See? Put that in the category of do, you see, no-brainer. Of course you should get enlightened. You should enlighten yourself fully. That's what this lifetime is for. Is if you can do it here in Maya, in the body, you can do it anywhere in these other akashas. Think of that. It's so dense out here. Finding the truth out here is going to be very difficult, like needle in a haystack difficult. But you have to find the master sower. See? He owns all the needles, and you need to get them from him and pierce that bubble, that balloon of Maya. It's all full of emptiness anyway. It's just hot air. And guess who blew the hot air into it? You. You're full of hot air. That's your ego. Blew into that balloon. Now you need to find a few good pins. You see, that's all you need. And that hot air will go away. See, and you have nice, cool, refreshing air of the Dharma will infill. See. Lots of metaphors I'm using today, I know, but hopefully they're effective for you. Now, I only stopped at the first sentence here because it's so revealing. And you'll find, what other person on here you'll find concurs with Vishwamitra? Dun, 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 dun,
Buddha.
Dun. Patanjali. Of course, Buddha would also too, but the idea here is that Patanjali was talking so much about not reacting to your experiences. This is one of the great teachings of yoga, is that if you get sick, you never say you're sick. Because why? Because the Atman doesn't get sick. And you are who again? The body? The body gets sick, but you're not the body, you're the Atman. See, you're Buddha nature. I am Atma Brahma, the self is Brahman, you see. One with the Father, always, right? So then you don't react to things that are unreal, like illness and so forth. Who would concur with that statement? Dun, 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 dun. Right to Vishishta, you see, who told you of the origin of disease was in the mind. And what will be the solution to finding that the origin of disease is in your mind? Dun, 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 dun. Viveka. You'll have to discriminate between body and mind. That is, you'll have to bring discrimination with you from a previous lifetime when you get into the body again. Then you can be free of diseases. Why do you think the yogis are so free of diseases? Because their mind was pure when they came. So, if the body does happen to contract a disease for whatever reason, like Holy Mother taking on the disease of others in form of rash and malaria and so forth, that's a different case. But for you, it's going to be enough to offset that with the discrimination between the real and the unreal. Discriminative wisdom will save you from all diseases, in the body, in the mind. You need that first and foremost. Don't leave home without Viveka Vairagya. Ramakrishna didn't. He took a shoulder bag of it when he came to earth, right? Eshechantan manas, you see. Well, you don't have anything with you, Master. What's going to protect you? Oh, look inside my bag. I don't see anything. That's your problem. You don't see the importance of discrimination and detachment. It's the 1-2 punch of Vedanta. It puts ignorance to the mat for all times. See, and these all come after. Well, we'll get to them, don't worry. But this quote is very important because due to loss, dejection due to loss and disappointment by not gaining the objects of one's desire are only stepping stones to Viveka Vairagya. How about telling your disappointed or depressed teenager that? Well, don't worry, that's just natural. See? You don't need a pill for that. You don't need to weep and moan. Here, let me give you a shoulder bag here. Let me tell you about this difference between you and your mind, and you and your energy, and you and your body. See? You and all the other 5 sheaths that are around you. Let me just inform you about this. Can you just give me an hour of your time, son, daughter, and sit with me while I share with this what I learned from my teacher? Maybe it'll sink in and you'll feel better tomorrow. You'll have a different perspective come over your mind. You'll have a different nadi to move along. See, a whole different nerve for your energy to run along, right? He finishes, clear discernment about the unreal nature of the world and the acquisition of indifference to it is the result of that. Together these conduce to the quiescent state of mind leading to Brahman. A nice saying by Vishvamitra as he sat there in the woods after he gave up the world and how to express what he realized. There it is. Or you can look to Jesus and say, seek not to store up treasures on earth, but rather store them up in heaven. So that ushers us into treasures. Now these jewels here are Sama, Dhamma, Upaviti, Titiksha, Samadhana, and Shraddha. And every Vedantist should memorize these. The Vedantists that I learned with in the company of my teacher didn't know these. See? You need to know them in Sanskrit, you need to know them in English, you need to know what they mean, and you need to meditate upon them. Then you need to own them. That's 5 things. So if you can do that, then you'll have inner peace, Sama. You'll have self-control, Dhamma. You'll have Uparati, self-settledness. Call it contentment if you want. You'll have Titiksha, that forbearance we talked about, which is the default zone of the wise. If a soul gets enlightenment here on earth, and they still have years to live because of their prarabdha karma, then they'll settle back into Titiksha, forbearance. The forbearance for them won't be about heat and cold. Forbearance for them will be, I cannot be with Brahman right now because of the body. You see, I'm going to have to be in the world for a while. And it's painful for a devotee of the Lord to be separated from the Lord and Mother of the universe. That's painful, you see. To be enslaved here in the 5 elements. See? So, Titiksha is going to be the default zone of the wise for them. They're going to fall back into it and say, I will forbear time, I will forbear space, I will forbear the time of the prarabdha karma I have left to live here on earth. And Holy Mother will tell me, while you're forbearing that time, do something to help someone else. Have you ever done anything to help someone else? When's the last time you did something to help someone else? I heard that said just yesterday. When's the last time you did anything to help someone else? That's a beautiful line. So I sometimes tell that people with chronic depression. So go serve someone. I just want to kill myself. Oh, that's a waste. Why don't you just go serve someone? Go help someone. Do something. It'll make you feel better, and it's a good way to spend your time. Why waste that time and this precious life? Seeing that kind of thinking. So we went through the 6 jewels really quickly. Probably suffice to say that you could even sing about them, as we are wont to do in our sampradaya. Mono chalo nija viketane, mono chalo nija viketane, shamshara videshe Videshirveshe Brahmo Kena Karane Mono Chalo Nija Viketane. Oh mind, return to your own home, your eternal home, your own abode. You are a foreigner in this foreign land. Birds have nests, foxes have holes, have nests, and foxes have holes, right? Why do you roam about aimlessly with no real purpose? The 5 senses and the 5 elements, all these are different from you. None of them belong to you. That is, you can't take them with you, so you can't keep them. Why have you become senseless in your attachment to others and forgotten your own true nature? In that 1 4-line, 3-line verse, you have almost all the problems, see, including attachment to others. Later on it says, Lobha mohari bhate dasyugan khatir ke says, there's a roadside inn known as Holy Company. Take rest there if you're tired and weary. Set yourself on the path of truth that leads to it and walk every moment, lighting your way with the lamp of devotion. Keep the riches of your good deeds with you for sustenance and provision. With great care, keep the 2 sentries, Sama and Dhamma with you. Inner peace and self-control. They will watch over you. They will protect you from greed and delusion, the highway robbers on this road of life that will threaten to rob all of your belongings. So, Samo, Dhammo, Puriti, Titiksha, these 6 jewels are so famous that they've been sung about in song in India. And pretty much a reading of the Vedanta and one of its rare aspects of practice that you'll find in Vedanta. It's an inner practice, no doubt, with the mind. And these are inner attributes and qualities that you'll have to find inside of yourself. See? Again, like nuggets, gold nuggets in mountains and so forth. You have to find them. And then you can meditate upon them, own them, and get sustenance from them. So a beautiful song there, Mono Chalo Nija Nikatani, was the first song Vivekananda sang to his master when they met in that lifetime. So, I hear you're a good singer, Narendra, sing me a song. And so he got the harmonium, Mono Chalo, began to sing to Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna was going into samadhi, see. Beautiful song about returning to your own abode. So, besides being a very beautiful example of the Vedanta, it also has a history in our lineage that's very important. Now, all of this to get what? The 4th treasure, which is called mumukshutvam. Moksha, mukti, those Sanskrit words mean liberation or freedom. And these are freedom that never had bondage in the first place. It's a freedom that's always at hand, as Shankara says. So it's not something you get over time or through evolution or by raising yourself out of sin or via purification. It's something that's always within you, and you need to arrive there again. You've taken a dream journey away from it. You need to wake up back in your own abode, as we just sang. So in that way you find out that mumukshutvam is this yearning for liberation that comes upon a soul quite rarely in this world when they're yearning for other things. Like the song says, you become attached to others, and the 5 senses and the 5 elements have become your focus, you see. But you need to get these behind you and move on towards this divine reality, which is your very nature. Now, there are some beautiful quotes here I gathered out of Sanatana Dharma. For instance, Queen Chudala, who was famous for walking the skies, says, if the desire for wealth is abandoned through asceticism, then ignorance will persist. But if such desire is transcended through viveka, it will disappear. So one of the problems about giving things up is if you give them up prematurely, they come back and haunt you. Maybe they even haunt your mind in meditation, even though you've given them up. It's one of the problems of renunciation and monasticism. So she makes that point. If you can do it through viveka, like knowing that these things are unreal, so there's no higher reason or purpose to own them anyway, because you know them to be unsatisfying, then that's going to convince the mind that it doesn't need to court them anymore. And you can give them up automatically on the spot, 100%, and they won't haunt you anymore. Otherwise, they'll come back at you. So she makes that good point. She was a deep meditator, so she was that one who Vashishta talked about, who was a walker of the skies. Vashishta says, and there he is, the study of Atmagyan books, which is that first point we looked at, ceaseless practice of vairagyam, which is this, detachment, and freeing oneself from desires for the world, when all these are attained and meditation on Brahman is engaged in, prana and mind will more readily come under your control. So it's almost mixing the Vedanta with the yoga, see, because you want to get your prana under control if you're a yogi, and breathing exercises and so forth, and then that's going to awaken the psychic prana, and with the psychic prana you can control the mind. That's at least going from the ground up. if you're coming from inside out, then you probably already controlled the mind, like these great souls that have come amongst us. But if you're working your way inwards to, let's call it remembrance of your divine nature, then you're going to want to do this by getting a hold of the prana, the psychic prana, and then the mind. Just like the chart we looked at last week and quite often look at with regards to Vivekananda's Manaha Prana Sambandha, connecting the living prana to the luminous mind. Just like that, we looked at it last week. Food, you get the prana from food, prana turns into psychic prana turns into divine mother power, Shakti, and with that you get yourself into a nirvikalpa state. And all of these concomitants that go along with that, we looked at that last week, and we can probably look at it again. But that's what Vasishtha is mentioning here. When all of these Atmagyan, scriptures, grace of the Guru, and ceaseless practice of detachment come together, then, he says, you can get the prana and the mind under your control. Otherwise, you're trying to get them under control without those things. He said what? It's like trying to grow crops only at night. Trying to grow crops only at night. You're striking out in the darkness, you see, and you have no light. So qualification, again. Virochana, what did he say? He puts it in a very direct way. He says, your country is the incomparable state of moksha. That's liberation at hand. You are Atmic reality, the king residing there. Your minister is cosmic intelligence. The way to this radiant land is being the pathways of Viveka and Vairagya and the wisdom that proceeds from them. So, pretty much just like the song we just sang, Mono Chalo Nija Nikatane. Those elements are contained right there in Virochana's beautiful saying. And finally, Swamiji himself said, advance towards liberation is the worthiest gain of mankind. May you speedily attain to freedom and help others attain it. So in this bookend to this long history, you see, of Indians' darshanas, these different souls come forward. Some of them men, some of them women, some of them monks, some of them kings, some of them householders, realized souls that gained moksha and had the perfect vision of their internal nature, and give us these gems of wisdom. All these gems spilling out of this chest, see, on all sides, in order to free us. Now let's, if we have time in this half, let's look at the next bullet point here, which is Panchakosha. We can make a rather quick study of it, although I have a few different angles to show you about it. But we know the target chart here. In fact, there's 2 or 3 target charts I've created that look pretty much the same. One of them's about the 5 akashas, and one of them's about phases of time, kalpa. You might remember both of those. But this one's about the 5 sheaths that cover the Atman, or the Adara system. We've been, as Vedantists, the ones here, and most of us looking live stream, have had this teaching over and over again from very early on. But it's still great to contemplate it, just like the 4 treasures and 6 jewels always bring forth more inspiration. Here you see that I've taken this description from the Vivekachudamani, slokas 150 through 211. That's a lot of slokas to spend on the 5 koshas, so you can tell that a great soul like Shankara, if he spent that much time on it in a revealed scripture like Vivekachudamani, then it must be important. But basically, here's the result of that reading. And important to note that Atman is the center of all of this, and it's also one with Brahman. That's probably the most essential of all teachings. In fact, down there, Brahman, the one unchanging reality, is called Atman when it's seen in association with the koshas. So that's a question we often get from people. In fact, I got it on the email just 2 nights ago from someone. You talk about Brahman and you talk about Atman. You talk about them both as their reality. Why have 2 names for the same thing? So we call it Atman from the standpoint of our body-mind mechanism, right? We need to speak of a soul, a transcendent reality, and we are right now the body. Might as well just call ourselves the body. It's not philosophically sound premise, we know as Vedantas, but here we are in the body, and we have energy to see with, to hear with, to speak with, to gather sustenance with, and then we have a mind, and we have an intelligence, and we have an ego. Those are the 5 sheaths right there. And so when we talk about divine reality from the standpoint of Brahman, we can't. We are one with that. When we're one with that ocean, like a hailstone that fell into it, there's no talking about it. You are it. It's like the greatest game of cosmic tag that was ever played. You're it. Hailstone fell into the ocean. There was no two, so it couldn't speak about it, right? But from the standpoint of Atman, it's encased by 5 sheaths, about five koshas, sheaths. It has to speak about them in order to penetrate through them. It has to account for them in order to slough them off like a snake sloughs off its skin. And it does that every night in deep sleep. It sloughs these off. It probably keeps only this one, the ego. See? A little semblance of the Anandamaya kosha is still there in deep sleep. And in fact, that can be a problem because then you cannot penetrate through to your true nature, Brahman, with that little ego that's going to come dancing back to wake you up, you see. So these 5 sheaths are to be accounted for and then pierced through. Separate the wheat from the chaff. Here's the wheat, there's the chaff in 5 layers. Here's the kernel of the coconut, here's the milk, the inner shell, the copra, the outer shell, and so forth. This is the covering over the essence. Now, we call it Atman because it's associating with these, but you don't want to identify with them. That's the teaching. You associate with them only for some 80 to 100 years, but you should never identify with them because that could mean 80 to 100 lifetimes of ignorance. Never knowing your true self. Never even knowing that you have coverings over you that need to be sloughed off. It's sort of like a snake that never thinks about giving up its skin till it's time. So, teachings of the 5 sheaths in Vedanta just bring the point straight home to us. We are that Atman. That Atman is one with Brahman. And we're just looking at it from 2 different perspectives here. That's all. Just associate with it. Don't identify with it. In fact, I was going to read to you the Katharudra Upanishad description of these 5 sheaths. The bodies of beings which appear in the form of the framework of bones and sinews is the self of the nature of food. Pretty much describing the Annamaya kosha, right? The outermost. It's really the sheath of food. Further within is the self of prana split into 5, and that's the pranamaya kosha. 5 pranas means prana that digests your food, prana that evacuates your waste, prana that moves your breath in and out. These are the different kinds of pranas that are in that body. See, but basically the body is in the prana, right? I mean, we always, unfortunately, people out in this world look at it inside out, with the cart before the horse. The cart before the horse. But you want to look at it from the inside out, not from the outside in, see. You want to know that each one of these is contained back inside, like the 5 little Russian dolls. Because remember, these sheaths also line up with the 5 akashas, 5 kinds of space. You could put that 5 other target space, I've done this before, other target chart right next to it, and you can see how these 5 sheaths line up with the 5 kinds of space. Then you'll understand the akashas better. Deeper still is the self of the nature of mind, different from these 2. Even deeper than that is the self of the nature of intelligence. At the deepest of all distinct levels is the self of the nature of bliss. So, in 1 or 2 sentences, the Katharudra Upanishad describes these 5 sheaths like that, one inside the other. Going on, Food is pervaded by vital energy. So this sheath is pervaded by prana. Don't you see prana everywhere here? You don't really see it, but you see its results, right? You can see, you can speak, you can taste, you can smell. That's all because of the prana. When Christ said man does not live by bread alone, I believe this is what he was talking about. He lives by this prana, not by the body itself, but by the prana that's in it. And he really doesn't live by Brahman because there is no body in Brahman. There are no sheaths in Brahman. So he probably wasn't talking about the Almighty Father, because all of this is a moot point if the hailstone is already in the ocean, right? It's no mind, no matter. No matter, never mind, see, as my teacher used to say. So basically, there it is. Food is pervaded by vital energy. Vital energy is pervaded by mind. Mind is pervaded by intelligence, and that ever-happy intelligence is pervaded by bliss. The ego. Sheath is bliss. Your ego is your happiness here. Without the ego, you wouldn't be enjoying anything. And without the ego, you're also having problems. Or with the ego, you're also having problems with everything that you enjoy and everything you suffer. So that's the subtlemost of sheaths. Brahman is not pervaded by anything. I should really read that all together. Food is pervaded by vital energy is pervaded by mind is pervaded by intelligence, that ever-happy intelligence is pervaded by bliss, this self of bliss is pervaded by Brahman, the witness, the innermost of all. Brahman is not pervaded by anything else. It's distinct in its own reality. In fact, it's the only reality. O-W-N-L-Y. Only. It owns everything else. You see. Neither by action, nor by begetting children, nor by anything else, only by knowing Brahman does one attain to Brahman. So that's pretty much a straight statement of how to gain enlightenment, by sloughing off the 5 sheaths or renouncing everything that thinks, moves, speaks, hears, and so forth, conceptualizes, fantasizes, and move right inside to the ever stable and stationary Brahman, which is the witness of all. Calls it a witness right there. See? Katha Rudra Upanishad, one of the minor Upanishads that wasn't commented on by Shankara, but you'll find beautiful teachings like that on classic systems like the Adara system in Upanishads like that. And you'll find out this was the work of the rishis, these Upanishads. We only have 108 of them left. There must have been many more that got lost to the world. But they're eternally inside the minds of the rishis as teachings. They'll come out again, just like everything else does. So a little bit of that. Now, we don't need to spend a lot more time on it, except that there's an involution of transmigrating soul, and there's an evolution out. As far as involution goes, it says, discrimination about the sheaths from gross to subtle enables the soul to receive its true nature. What's that word again? Did I hear it right? Discrimination between the real and the unreal, about the nature of the difference between the soul and nature, or the self and all its coverings. That is allows the soul to perceive itself and its true nature. As far as evolution is concerned, the universe and all living beings seemingly evolve from subtle to gross. So, seemingly means all movement is actually kind of a dream. There's only one reality and it's always stationary. But if you're looking at it from the standpoint, it seems like from the causal, then the subtle, then the gross. It would be like dreaming, deep sleep to dreaming to waking. And then when everything involves again, you go from waking to dreaming to deep sleep. Well, that's in one 24-hour day. But in a 4,320,000,000-year-old age, then the same thing is happening. There's this period of coming from the causal. That would be Om, the word, you see. And from Om out to the cosmic mind, from the cosmic mind to the the antakarana, the fourfold mind, and from that out to the other sets of fives, and then turning and moving back in. That's what you do every night. But this is also what matter is doing and what embodied consciousness is doing over periods of time as well. All in a blink of an eye, too. See, it's just all as if time wasn't really playing a factor in any of it. These layers float, as it were, in the infinite ocean of pure consciousness, the ultimate reality in which time, space, and all levels of existence reside. So all of these float. They also overlap a little bit. A system like that really can't, you won't be able to go into meditation night, oh, I see the difference between my body and prana. See, but they'll just overlap like that. And you'll have to see by the effects of your meditation where your consciousness has bilocated to, see, and how it's moving from subtle to gross, or in this case, from gross back to subtle. Pretty soon when you see nothing, feel nothing, hear nothing, taste nothing, but you're still there, you'll know you're in the causal. And you'll know that because it's you that's knowing that. It's none of these. See? These can't know. Only you can know. First you know about them, then you know you're not them. And then you know who you are. You'll know your true nature. So with some teachings about the first bullet points of Vedanta here, under qualification, let's take our break here for 15 minutes. Come back and look at one other chart on the 5 sheaths I want to show you. Mahalo, or thank you, for this trip through Amoha. Aloha through Amoha. Namaste. Now we return for the second half of the second class on the transmission of Swami Vivekananda. You can see already that the transmission is very deep and very wide. It's not like a shallow valley with waters that are only a foot deep, like Silver Lake up in Oregon. I practically walked halfway across it once and didn't get over my knees. It's a wide valley that's also deep. The waters are profound waters of life, that is, waters of eternal life. And Vivekananda has come amongst us, 1893, to America particularly, and also to England and other countries, to let us know about this ocean. It's not a samsara sagara. Samsara sagara is the ocean of suffering. And if you catch a glimpse of that, it'll definitely shock you. Sometimes we do catch a glimpse of that, especially in this technological age where we can see the effects of war right in our living room and so forth nowadays. But this other ocean is sagara. It's an ocean, Ananda Sagara. It's an ocean of bliss. It's an ocean of teachings that great beings love to quaff waters from that ocean. And it just increases their realization and their bliss many-fold by drinking in these teachings of the Dharma. And then they'll be more satisfied in handing them out to you in pitcherfuls, bucketfuls, and so forth, so that you can slake your thirst on it too. And this teaching that we're going to be looking at here is about the three bodies and the five sheaths. So the five sheaths we just looked at is the koshas. Just remember that target chart that we just had up. But here's how this can go across the board as well. There you see the five sheaths listed again in the middle. That is your body, sheath of food, sheath of energy, sheath of mind, sheath of intellect, and sheath of ego. This is how Vedanta divides up the levels of your consciousness: body, energy, mind, intelligence, and ego. And it'd be like one of the bullet point teachings of any qualifying darshana that a great soul like Vivekananda would bring to you. You punch a kosha. He wants you to know that this is how Vedanta looks at these levels of your consciousness. Now, you can put that in state the earlier rishis like Vashishta, and later rishis like Gaudapada would put it in state of your gross body, your subtle body, and your causal body. That is, there's three worlds here. And in fact, the next chart actually shows those worlds. But this means that they're talking about the same thing in different ages, and also bringing in other elements for your understanding. You can see here the gross body is the straight across with the Anandamaya kosha. Subtle body contains all three of these. Your subtle body, called Sukshma Sharira, this is called the gross body, and Stula Sharira, and Sukshma Sharira, gross body and subtle body, and then Karana Sharira, causal body. Karana means cause. So basically you can see that your subtle body consists of energy, mind, and intellect. That's a whole different body. And in India, you would teach your children not only first that you're not just a physical body. Well, why am I not just a physical body? I don't see any other body around that I am. I'm not everyone else's body. I'm just my own body. We say, no, go inside and start thinking, start perceiving, do some meditation maybe, and you'll find out that you have two other bodies. One's a subtle body, and that's basically mind, if you want to just put it into one word. But you can see that it consists of mind, intellect, and energy. You move out here with a certain kind of energy. There's kinetic and electric energy out in the outer. But your body and your arms move and your eyes see by a subtler kind of energy called prana. It's really a missing link in our thinking here in the West. And Christ was trying to bring it forward to the apostles. But you don't live by bread alone. That means you have this other energy inside of you, which causes you to breathe and causes you to see and causes you to hear. if you take it into the causal body, then you also find out that that's where all of your knowledge is stored. Why you respond to everything out here is because it's inside of you first. If it wasn't inside of you first, you'd be like a foreigner in a foreign land. Isn't that what the song just sang? And how many people are like that? They feel totally estranged from the world, not in a good way. See, I mean, there's being estranged from the world by renouncing it. That's good, you know. That means that's a Jnani that's doing that, a discriminator, someone who's using Viveka Vairagya to see through all of the appearances of things and get to the truth. But there's a way of being estranged to the world that just makes you an automaton, makes you an ignorant fool who just suffers, you see. A first-class fool, to quote my teacher. There are fools and then there are first-class fools. So they're moving about the world having no connection with anything. They don't know anything inside of them, so they're not responding to anything outside of them. And they'll fall into greed and selfishness and selfish grasping and so forth. And that will become their preoccupation, maybe for lifetimes. They'll develop samskaras, samskara that they won't be able to destroy in any given lifetime, and they'll come back with them again and again and again. We won't be able to purify those. It'll be very difficult to get to and neutralize them. So in this case, we're talking about how everything is stored in your subtle body, and you'll respond to it in your gross body if you know about it. That is, you are listening to these teachings and responding to them. That is, if you are, because they're already in you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this room, or you wouldn't be watching. You're having an interest. So what is that interest? You have to ask these questions, and you have to ask where this interest is coming from. My body isn't interested in it. See, it's just sitting here. So I must have an interest in another body, and that's called sukshma. Sukshma is subtle word in Sanskrit for what is subtle. And what is subtle is inward. So you can see how these three sheaths all of a sudden get put together in your subtle body. Your energy, your real energy, that is the energy that's helping you understand words, and energy that's helping you to contemplate the teachings and to go into meditation, is really inside of you. That outer energy isn't helping you do that. In fact, the outer energy can distract you from that, isn't it? If your energy becomes outwardly oriented and erratic, then it'll actually distract you from getting into your subtle body in meditation. You won't be able to contemplate the teachings. You won't even be able to sit still and listen to them if a teacher's in front of you discoursing on them. So it's just all to say that if you have this peaceful mind, you'll find the energy that you need and the mind and the intelligence all inside of that threefold package. Those three koshas are your subtle body. Now your causal body is even deeper and formless. So that's why it's this Anandamaya kosha. And so it's reserved for, that fifth sheath is reserved for a description of your causal body. It's very, very rare that you'll find anything about the causal body, even in the scriptures. It's formless, so it's very difficult to talk about. But they do describe it with such things like, the mind quits thinking. The intellect stops discerning between good and bad, right and wrong, pleasure and pain. It's where all the vibrations of the mind stop. And so if you were to get into it, and by the way, if you did, you'd feel the subtle bliss, then it would be very likely that you would have a deep state of mind, like in a meditation. And deep sleep is like that. Deep sleep is a meditation for you, but you're not sitting like this with your awareness intact. You're laying flat, and pretty much your awareness has abandoned you, and you're just enjoying this overall sense of general bliss without any conscious entity there. See? So that's the drawback to deep sleep. It's very healthy for your condition, and everyone needs it. The drawback to it is that it's a curtain of nescience that's in front of your inner eye, and you cannot see the ocean of Brahman because of it. It's going to be one of the most difficult things to penetrate through in meditation. And the first thing you would probably encounter about it is the seeds. It's like, I've used to describe it as a seed bed in a forest. It's been thousands of trees have dropped thousands of seeds in this soil, and it's just covered with seeds. You're walking on top of 3-4 feet of seeds underneath the earth and all around. And that's what deep sleep or causal body is like. See, all the seeds for everything that happens here in these sheaths or in these bodies or in these worlds are stored there in the causal body. Now, probably the best bit of wisdom that comes out of knowing that is that you know that nothing dies. Nothing gets created and nothing gets destroyed. So when it leaves this state of the gross body, it takes on a subtle body and it takes on a causal body. Everything does that. And except the Atman. Atman is witnessing it all. But as far as consciousness, it still transmigrates between heaven, earth, and hell, between gross, subtle, and causal, between A, U, and M, the word, and so forth, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. That is transmigrating in that way and shifting levels of consciousness. So it thinks it's moving, it thinks it's coming and going, it thinks it's being born, it thinks it's dying, and it cannot penetrate through all the seeds for that. See, death is a seed in you. Attachment to life is a seed in you. Abhinivesha, Patanjali called it. And it's a seed that you haven't boiled over the fire yet. Ramakrishna said, before the rainy season, you strew some rice, some paddy, right? You come back after the rainy season, it's like a riot of growth. But if you take that handful of paddy and boil it for just a minute in a fire, in some water, and then strew it around, then go away and come back after the rainy season, nothing. See, you boiled away its power to germinate. Well, that's what the seeker of truth is going to want to do with all the seeds in the causal state. He wants to boil them in Atmagyan, see, or in yoga, or in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, or in Nirvana. And then he's free. He, she, it is free. See, it's one with its father again. Otherwise, these seeds are coming back and causing a riot of growth in these koshas. Now, other correlations here are, and we already talked about this, stula, sukshma, sharira are just the condition of the 3 states of the body. Here you're in a gross condition. Gross doesn't mean, ew, gross, like the teenagers, the kids say. But it just means apparent, material, let's call it. Here you're in a subtle condition, because you're in the mind, and here you're in a causal condition, because cause and effect has pretty much gone away. That is, effect has gone away, but the cause is so subtle you can't even see it yet. It's like deep sleep again. You wouldn't know there's a cause that brings you back to the waking state, but there is one. And it usually does bring you back to the waking state. If you cut the silver cord there, then you won't come back to the waking state anymore. You'll drop the body. Consciousness will not return along those avenues. That is, from here down to here. It will not return to the body again. It will give up the body and stay in a higher condition. There are beings that have had experiences of that, being in a higher condition and saying, I think I can go there. Should I just cut the cord and stay in this beautiful position? No, I think I'll just appear back in the body. You see, and like in a moment, you've gone through all the chakras, come down all the chakras, or come down from the causal through the subtle to the gross, and you're immediately in the body again, and your senses have consciousness in them, whereas before they didn't. Consciousness had abandoned them. It's interesting how nobody ever really looks into that. They say, oh, now he's sleeping, now he's waking, but they never say what happened to consciousness when it did that. How did it abandon the body and senses? Why did it abandon the body and senses? Oh, it's just because he was tired and sleepy. See? Well, then how come he's abandoning the body and the senses in meditation? He's not sleepy there, or shouldn't be. So where does consciousness go? See, and what state does it travel to? And how does it get there? And what is this movement of consciousness that's going in? It's going in and out inside of one 24-hour period and inside of 100-year-old lifetime, you see. Constantly it's doing this, and nobody ever questions it. So, but the rishis of India did. These are some of the results of the teachings they found out about questioning this apparent movement of consciousness. Ultimately, they arrived at the condition that it doesn't move. It's everywhere already. There is a good word in English for that, all-pervasive. I think that's one word. There must be a dash in there somewhere. All-pervasive. It's in everything and everywhere. See, it's like Sri Ramakrishna said, like sweetness in sugarcane juice. Permeated. See? So consciousness permeates all of these levels, but it's the one thing that gets overlooked as consciousness shifts. In fact, the reason it gets overlooked is because consciousness believes it's shifting. You know, the most recent discovery in quantum physics, I was just reading about it last night, is that you'll only understand reality if you're looking at it, if you're there. So it's sort of like this final statement about you must be there in order for something to be real. So they're beginning to have experiments like that and conducting them even on the physical plane about consciousness. And then that's a good thing. People are criticizing it, but because there are many people who are antagonistic to Dharma and teachings like this. They're either afraid they might uncover something, or they're afraid it might change their life and they won't make money anymore, or whatever the reason is behind their unfounded fears. This Dharma is here to stay, and it's been here much longer than the human being has. It's been here much longer to the eukaryote. You see, the eukaryote came out of this as an idea, a one-celled being. See, prokaryote didn't even have a nucleus. Then the eukaryote had a nucleus, you see. But then there was Judas Iscariot. He had lots of nucleus, lots of cells, you see. But a lot of them rebelled against divine wisdom, like the scientists are. See, every cell in his body was betraying, you see, at one point. So, whether you're a one-celled or a many-celled being, the thing is that you came out of a subtle, a causal state when you took on a form. Now, beyond the causal body, there's no form. In fact, in the causal body, there's no form. You don't see anything in deep sleep tonight. You don't even see a semblance of the ego. You don't know who you are, where you are, how you got there, and you don't know anything that's going to happen or did happen in the past. Time, the three phases of time are gone. And all you are there is just like steeping like a tea bag in this cup of blissful liquid, you see, until all of a sudden your consciousness is allocated back with the form as you move back. So there are many, many ways in which these systems proclaim that. The Kundalini Yoga is very famous for that. Tibetan Buddhism also very well known for talking about how the soul moves from body to bodiless condition after death and before the next lifetime, how it gets back into the body, how it identifies with the fetus, how it chooses its own parents, how it chooses its country, and then how it gives those up and moves back into Buddha nature again. There are many, many ways in these systems that explain this in their own language. Now, you could also bring in the three states of awareness, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And that was kind of a gift more recently of Shankara and his teacher Gaudapada. In Advaita Vedanta, they talk a lot about Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And they correlate straight across the board with your gross, subtle, causal body, Stula, Sukshma, and Karana Sharira. That means a sheath, or a form, a covering, again. And with these 5 sheaths of the Dara system of Vedanta. So, if you want to put it in even another way from another system, which is more contemporary, although this was very ancient before Shankara and Gaudapada got a hold of it, but in about 600 AD, Gaudapada got a hold of this and used it to designate even another Triputi, AUM of Om, AUM of Om, and Turiya, the little one-eyed smile. You've seen the Om sign. That really pretty much just signifies your waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state. You are always in this word, this humming all the time, and it's indiscriminate here. Indeterminate here, and then it becomes more determinate here, and then it becomes gross and manifested there in the gross body. It's all the word. And Christ was trying to explain this to John, and John wasn't getting it. So he had to go to Gethsemane and meditate on this word and know that it's shooting everything through like sweetness in sugarcane juice, and use it as the foundation for your meditation. It is the single most used and best tool for meditation there is, the word Om. It's a bijam, it's a seed. See, and it's the grandest of all seeds. And you can use that alone as your mantra if you want. Probably better to get it from an illumined soul and put it together with the name of a great being, like, say, Shiva, Om Namah Shivaya. Or Dalai Lama would say, Om Mani Padme Hum, his mantra, you see. Om Sri Ramakrishna in Vedanta, in our Vedanta centers. So you'd say it, that's the beginning of mantras, is that word Om. So basically what Om is, according to the non-dualists, is waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. The three states of your consciousness. Jagat, Swapna, and Sushupti. And if you say those words among Sanskrit knowers, you'll get the reaction you're looking for. If they don't go into samadhi right in front of your eyes, their eyes will roll up in their head and they'll remember divine reality, see, and how Brahman is in it all. See? That's the point. Brahman is the backdrop to it all. It's the underlying substratum of everything. Krishna said it's like the thread running through the pearls. So you wouldn't be able to enjoy the pearls of all these worlds and of all these darshanas if the thread wasn't in it. So that one non-dual awareness or presence or birthless, deathless consciousness, or however you want to put it, is running through it all. Now, if you see this last one, there's the identity, which Advaita Vedanta adds to this list of Triputis, which this is actually fivefold. But the rest are Triputis, three teachings. And that's that when you're in the waking state or in the gross body, you are the enjoyer of objects. Might seem sort of obvious, but it's not saying anything about suffering from objects or being attached to objects. You should be the enjoyer of objects. And you will be if you know that they all came from within you. Right? To know that they all came from within you is to know that they're unreal. They're your projections. But a projection is not real. You cannot enjoy a projection. Not really. You can't own a projection. That's why Christ said you can't take it with you. Or it'd be easier for a rich man, a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get to heaven, because he's trying to pull all this stuff along with him. He doesn't know that he's already projected this. It belongs to them. He can have it any time he wants, and he should just give it up and be free when it's time to leave it. So the enjoyer of objects is a person best described as someone who walks amongst the objects of the senses without getting attached to them. Dun, 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 dun. Patanjali said that. A yogi is the being who walks among the objects of the senses without getting attached to them. So he can enjoy them, he can renounce them, he can give them away. He likes that best of all. If he accumulates things, he likes to give them away. That's his favorite. But he's also in knowledge of them being unreal, insubstantial, unsatisfying, empty. Dun, 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 da, 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 da. Buddhism is good for talking about emptiness. Lord Buddha. Empty of substance and empty of the ability to fulfill you. That would be the 1-2 punch in Buddhism. Now, if you're at the level of your subtle body, or in these three koshas, or in the dreaming state, which is your subtle body, then you will be the enjoyer of dream worlds. here again, just like you were enjoying objects, but you weren't suffering them and you weren't attached to them, here you are enjoying dreams without forgetting that you're the dreamer. Oh, dreamer, awake, you must, is some of the words of the song. See? So you must discriminate between that. The way you're going to make your dreams radiant meditations, as we said earlier, is to use your Viveka and Vairagya, right? Take out your shoulder bag, open it up, and bring those out and apply them. And do your studies and do other things too. In other words, you could say, Pranayamam Pratyaharam Nitya Nitya Viveka Vicharam Japya Sameta Samadhi Vidanam Purva Varanam Mahadavantaram Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Mudamate Samprapte Sanahite Kali Nahi Nahi Vakshati Dukrin Karane. Basically says, practice your breathing exercises. Practice renunciation of objects. Discriminate between the real and the unreal. Nitya, anicca, viveka, vicharam. Vicharam is to discriminate, right? Viveka. So be the discriminator. And then practice your japa and experience samadhi. He's giving you permission. Go ahead. See? And all of these things then will lead to a state of being enjoyer of objects, being a knower that you're the dreamer in the dream states. See? So the teachings are very positive. See? The only negative thing about them is that you have to realize the world's unreal. But what's behind the knowledge of the world of being unreal is that Brahman is real. Your true nature is real. You are real, not your projections. It's just pretty much that simple. So teachings like this with triputis and sheaths are just all designed to lift off of this false projection that you're engaging in. And you can do it by these practices. Your breathing exercises, your practice of discrimination, pratyahara, taking yourself away from the objects, renouncing objects, for at least long enough so that you can remember your true nature. So that was Bhaja Govindam, one of the verses by Shankara's disciple. That's this teaching of the three bodies and the five sheaths. Came from Sri Ram, asking Vasishta, if you remember, what's in the nature of the ego? So basically there's the ego. Nandamaya kosha, the causal body, the karana sharira, your deep sleep, your ego persists there. And it's also the enjoyer of bliss, isn't it? So there's this ego that's enjoying its own personalized bliss in all three of these levels, and all five of these sheaths. The hardest thing for you to do is going to realize the difference between the bliss of the ego and the bliss of Brahman. One's called Anandamaya Kosha, the other's called Ananda Sagara, the ocean of bliss that has no boundaries. But your ego has boundaries, and it's operating in them all the time, at different levels. It's running a merry chase. It's running a boat race, you see, around all the worlds. And that might be a good segue into what all these worlds really are that the ego is engaged in this chase. This will stay up there for me. 7 spheres, 7 worlds, 7 chakras, and 5 koshas. So here's using the koshas in yet another way. That is, as a juxtaposition. Now there they are. Sheath of bliss, sheath of intelligence, sheath of psychic energy, sheath of vital energy, and sheath of physical energy. Putting pretty much the same names to them with a little bit different wording. Now here's a dotted line running through the middle that will be important later. See if I can call up my version of this real quick. Now you see the subheadings across, or the main headings across the top. First we're looking at the sheaths or koshas. Next to them the spheres or brahmandas. These are the projected spheres of Lord Brahma. You see these brahmandas. They're worlds in themselves, and just like the sheaths, or the word we used, akasha, right? These are inner realms, inner space, that the embodied human being usually doesn't know anything about because it does not inspect his dream state or his deep sleep state with any real concentrated awareness. It just goes into them, comes out of them, has experiences, lets the experiences flow on. Like I'm living in the present, man. But doesn't inspect them with this eye open. Right? Like a Vedantic scientist, you see, inspecting consciousness, like a Sherlock Holmes of the spiritual world. The game's afoot and I have to find out, you see, what it's all about. Where did it come from? What's its origin? Oh, it's originless? I'm free. See, jump to the chase. So you see there the Brahmaloka, from top down, is right there at the level of the sheath of bliss, a realm of the sacred Trinity. We sing about it, don't we? All the time, right? Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Deva Maheshwara, Gurur Eva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, and Gurur Deva Maheshwara. That's Shiva. So the Trinity is at the very hub of all these worlds. It's at the very source or origin of all of them. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Brahma projects, Vishnu sustains, Shiva dissolves. See? So most people like Brahma and Vishnu and kind of stay away from Shiva because they're attached to these worlds. But you have to engage Shiva if you want to destroy everything that's in the worlds, including your suffering, your attachments, your grief, your shame, your pride, your lust, your anger, your envy, your jealousy. All those things that are also a part of the world, which are in the indiscriminate mind, get destroyed by Shiva too. So you must court Shiva's grace as well as Brahma and Vishnu's. They're a trinity, and they're at the Brahmaloka. You see, that's the top of 7 worlds. Inmost. Top means inmost. Like if you come out and you think Jesus or God is floating on a cloud somewhere, then you'll go, my Savior, see. But in India, you're a Vedantist and you're a wrestler and you come out for a match, you go, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are inside of me. You're not going to point up, you're pointing in. I'm going for my refuge inside of myself, see. Adihi sa samyoga namitta hetu. Kala strikala tikalopi drista. A beautiful chant in the Svetashvatara Upanishad which says, meditate upon the Lord as thine own self. Say no more. Meditate on the Lord as thy own self, seated in your heart. Say that much more. See, so that's where you go if you want to find the 7 worlds, if you want to find the 5 sheaths, if you want to find the 3 states of your awareness, if you want to find any of this, it's all within you. Like I said, you wouldn't be interested in it right now if it wasn't. I wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't in me. So this is all living proof if you need it. But more important to that is that you must make your way to it. You see, make your way right to it. So if you're talking about Anandamaya Kosha, you're pretty much talking about right across the board with the subtlemost worlds, also called Pushkar Dvipa in Tantra. Tantra has its set of worlds too, that we don't look at that often. If you're talking about it in terms of chakras, that's Sahasrara. See, that's the highest, the most blissful. Sahasrara probably would even be beyond these, but it's a good allocation, a good correlation to make. Now if you come down to the Vijnanamaya Kosha, remember the target chart? You're coming down to the sheath of intelligence, very powerful sheath. That's where all this dharma is stored right now in seeds, is this Vijnanamaya kosha. That's the tapaloka of the realm of the Vairajas. These are the 7 rishis of these 7 worlds. Beautiful song, Sapta Rishi Mandalake. The mandala of the rishis is the 7-fold worlds that these rishis preside over. So these are worlds that you would go to, presided over by, like, Lord Brahma, who is his father. Lord Brahma is said to be, Vishishta is said to be his mind-born son. So he came out of the Brahmaloka, you see, and worked his way down into the body. Took a body, Tapaloka. So these are general correlations. Manamaya kosha, sheath of psychic energy, basically the realm of the seers and the realm of the sages. Janaloka and Maharloka are there. You'll realize this column mainly from the Gayatri mantra, right? Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam. So you'll basically see that the Gayatri includes these. May we have peace in these 3 worlds. These 3 worlds don't need it. These 4, rather. These 3 need it very much. You need peace on the outside, on the inside, and transcendent. So that mantra is very good for affirming that. So you can help bring that peace to them yourself. It starts off in you and in your mind first, but you must bring it out and do your best to bring peace everywhere. The peacemakers do that. Interesting how they do it, though. They called Christ a peacemaker, and he said, "They call me a peacemaker, but I've not come to earth to bring peace. I've come to bring a sword, and with the sword I'll separate father from son, mother from daughter." Why would he do that? Because the father wants to seek Brahman, and the son's a first-class fool. See? Or vice versa. So he's going to give a sword to those people who want to follow God. They'll cut the world away from it. And he won't give that sword to those who love the world. He'll give them Caesar. Grant unto Caesar what is Caesar's, right? So Christ wasn't a peacemaker in that sense. He meant to bring you eternal peace. And you'll only get that by transcending the whole shooting match. You see. If you identify with any one of these, then you become trapped in that world, trapped in that sheath, trapped in that limited condition. So you want them all behind you. See. You want to know that you're the self in all. Right? All worlds, both here and there, do I renounce. All heavens, all earths, all hells, all hopes, and all fears. Thus cut thy bonds. Who said that? Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. All worlds, both here and there, do I renounce. So he sees all of these as being inside of himself. See, all worlds. That's how vast and beautiful the human being is in its true nature. Somebody asked me that question last night in an email. I had to answer that. Why is the human being greater than the gods? I had to tell him why. It has this potential to realize the Atman right now. You have the potential to realize your true nature right now in this very moment. The gods can't do that, you see. They're fixed in their position for another 4,320,000,000 years. While you waste all your lifetimes not realizing the Atman. So we must be up and doing, you see. Use this lifetime to get free. 6 months, 6 years, 60 years, just do it. Realize that you always are free would be a better way of saying that. You don't get moksha. Moksha is already your true nature. But you're going to have to maybe select one of these pathways to follow in order to realize that. And you'll find him, because he is according to Sri Ramakrishna, he is the 7th Vairaja. He is in charge of Brahmaloka. He is the rishi of the highest. Of all 7, he's the highest rishi. So he will come down from that position when he takes a form like this in order to spread this wisdom, and he can do it. And do it in 39 years. It may take hundreds of years, lifetimes to try and realize it, but he'll disseminate it all in a short time. He was out of the body in 39 years. So there's that dotted line. We're still getting to that. These are names of other worlds. Notice the English though. Subtlemost world, highest causal world, intermediate causal world, lower causal world. So Plaksadvipa, Shalmali Dvipa, and Kroncha Dvipa are these worlds that are associated with these very high beings. Shaivism, which could easily be put up here as another system with its bullet points, talks about this a lot, has its own system of Mantreshwaris, Vidyeshwaris, and a whole system of inner beings that preside over these lands of consciousness, these realms of consciousness, these kingdoms of heaven within you. See, this mansion with many chambers, Jesus said. See, so you don't have to take India's word for it. Take Middle East's word for it. Take Jesus' word for it. He also knew about the kingdom of heaven within. He also knew that his father's mansion had many chambers. And he knew that this earth was just one little mud puddle, you see, of a world that you should renounce, because birds and foxes live here with holes and nests, but you don't have any place to stay here, you see. Shall I sing the song again? Why do you wander around this world? You see, the 5 elements, the 5 senses, those aren't yours. They don't belong to you. Why have you become deluded in your attachment to these things? So there are beings who have had these realizations because of these great teachers who gave these teachings to them, and they meditated on them for a while, and they finally gave it up, you see. And they were free at that moment. When they renounced, they were free. And they didn't cling, see, anymore to it, and those things didn't cling to them. And then they lived in the Dharma, you see, or they lived in titiksha, forbearance, whatever, they lived in this state that was treading water just long enough to stay afloat until the soul became one with Brahman, that it took its final departure from the body. And if it took its departure above this dotted line, it never came back to earth again. This is kind of the point I was heading for. Taking its birth again in these worlds, that is, celestial worlds, etheric worlds, physical worlds, most likely it's going to come back to the body again. It still desires worlds. It still desires objects. It still desires money. It still desires power. It still desires enjoyment. See? It's just that simple. It's not a teaching of sin or morality. It's a teaching of what is, how the soul desires. And all religions will agree it's all based on desire. So if those desires can get satisfied or fulfilled, then there will be no return to this 3 lower worlds, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. Because these are like heaven, earth, and hell kind of teaching, you see. And here's the hells here. There are 7 patalas, just like there are 7 worlds. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala. 7 sunken grounds. Patala means sunken ground, if you translate it into English. Tibetan Buddhists will teach you about these too. They probably have more teachings than India does, than these systems done, all combined. The freezing, cracking hell, and the burning, molten hell, and they have different even English names for them. And these hells are not locations in space. None of these are locations in space and time. Space and time insinuate themselves on this. They're all locations in you. That is, right now, you and I, all of us, are sitting in the mind. We're not sitting in a physical world. This world came out of the physical, this world came out of the mind, and we are sitting in it as objects of our own ideation. Our bodies came out of the mind, objects came out of the mind, The words came out of the mind, the teachings come out of the mind, it's all mind. So there is no location in an outer space that's real. It's all projected. And by thinking of things like that, then the genius becomes the seer. See? The aspirant becomes the adept. The bound soul becomes the free soul. And that freedom finds that freedom in the eternal moment at all times and wonders why he ever got out of it in the first place. You know, he didn't have to move to get back into liberation, didn't have to move away to get into bondage. There is no nirvana to attain. There is no samsara to renounce. That's the saying in the Diamond Sutra of da 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 da. You see? No nirvana to attain, no samsara to renounce. It's all within you. And where are you going to allocate your consciousness at any given time or space, in any given space? Well, so these teachings are all about non-actual moments and non-actual locations. Where is the locus where Brahman doesn't exist? It's all Brahman. Now, to wake up and realize that, then become an enjoyer of objects, become an enjoyer of dreams. Did we finish that, by the way? Become an enjoyer of bliss. By knowing this one non-dual piece of information that you'll probably forget as soon as we close the class and you walk out the door today. It seems so real and obvious right now because we're sitting together speaking of it, you see, like quantum physics just said, right? It's real when you're there. Here we are. Dharma is the closest doorway to truth. It's not truth yet, but it's the closest doorway. It's that picture window. But unfortunately, picture windows show you an outer view. So you're going to have to shut these two eyes and get an inner picture window, right? You're going to have to make that eye single and know the truth. This is called the Jnana Chakshu. It's the seventh of these. Right there, Agya. See? It's the Jnana Chakshu. It's the inner eye of wisdom. So, this teaching, also, you can say down the centers, down the spiritual vortexes, if you consult Kundalini Yoga's way of thinking. Down these centers, then you're coming. From crown to third eye, to throat, to heart, right? And notice how the heart is named Anahata. That's a word for the word. Om. Anahata means Om. So Om is humming right there in your heart, right at the center. There's three chakras below and 3 chakras above. So it's right in the center of these 7 worlds. And so if the soul can arrive there, that is, call its consciousness inwards, upwards as it were, then it's going to attain these 6 chakras, mastery over these 6 chakras. And just another way of saying mastery over all the worlds, mastery over the 3 states of consciousness, mastery over the 5 sheaths, and so forth. If it goes below this dotted line, you're in the realm of energy and matter. Big problem, you see. Big problem, energy and matter. For no other good reason than they tend to take all your attention. Have you noticed? I'm not talking about just you, objects, and how good you feel or not each day. I'm talking about your intelligentsia, your collegiate level people, your scientists. It's taking all their attention. Energy and matter is taking all their attention. Is meditation taking any of their attention? Is study of scriptures taking any of their attention? Is serving other beings as God taking any of their attention? Or is it splitting the atom to get power so that you can threaten other countries to take their resources for yourself? What's getting their attention, you must ask, you see? And when you look at the sages and seers and illumined souls like this great soul, who I think is the greatest soul to come, along with Lord Buddha and Ramakrishna and others, these are superlative souls who are Nitya Siddha. They're eternally perfect. Sri Ramakrishna called him Nitya Siddha. Nitya Siddha, eternally perfect. That's why we sing Jai Vireshwara, Jai Tripurari, Gaye Hamu Saba Mahima Teri. Jai Vireshwara, Jai Tripurari, Gaye Hamu Saba Mahima Teri. Jai Ho, Vivekananda, Kunjadanu, Mahimati Hari. Jai Ho, Vivekananda, Kunjadanu, Mahimati Hari. Jai Vireshwara, Jai Tripurari, Gaye Ham Saba, Mahimateri. Vireshvara, Tripurari, those are names for Shiva. I said you should make your peace and your identity, your communications and relations with Lord Shiva. You see, we really see him as the destroyer of ignorance, destroyer of suffering. That's why he came here, not to bring bliss and so forth. That'll come. But he came here to destroy the ignorance that's in the way of the bliss. Is to get us out of these lower worlds so that we can get to realms of higher bliss, and so that we aren't called back down to this earth and this body again out of mere attachment, you see. Binding ourselves into the body fast, like a silkworm in its cocoon. You see, that's how they say it in the scriptures. These souls bind themselves into the physical sheath, body, fast, like a cocoon, like a silkworm in a cocoon, you see. And no God or no devil is doing that binding. They themselves are doing it. And then they're making gods and devils at fault, you see, for it. Blaming them. When there is no God, there is no devil, there's just the great self. Who said that? Dun, 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 dun. There is no God, there is no devil, there's just the great self. That's you, by the way. You are that. How do you say that in Sanskrit?
Tattvamasi.
Tattvamasi. That thou art. There was a time long ago in a world far above all the rest, when the teacher, Lord Brahma, could whisper that into Vashishta's ear, Tattvamasi, and Vashishta would go into samadhi. Drop of a hat kind of realization, you see. But now we have to hear it over and over and over again. Hopefully one of these days, one of these classes, one of these years, one of these lifetimes, we'll hear it in just the right way, that the whole house of cards will come falling down, see. And we'll see through, like that clock Ramakrishna saw in Calcutta when he was alive. You see, that 365 days of the year, you can't, all you can see is gears, huge clock. But there's just 1 hour of one day, or maybe 1 day out of 1 year, where all the gears align so that you can see through the clock. There's just a little porthole there, see. And of course, when he saw that, he went into samadhi. Tar. Oh, that's like, let's see. So that one view we get where this opens. It could be in waking state, it could be in dreams tonight, it could be in deep sleep, where that will suggest itself to you. You'll see. You'll truly see. And that'll be the end of your dream in relativity. This is all relativity. Oh, dreamer, awake, you must. At that time, then you will be the seer that you always were and always will be. And life and death will be just seen as a sort of charade you are playing with yourself. See? Oh, I think I'll be born and be afraid of death for a while. See? But then I'll die and I'll see it was all just a charade, and I'll just be so joyful. It'll increase my bliss exponentially, hundreds and thousands of times. a game I played with myself, you see. Now below in the remaining 10 minutes or so, the problem of energy and matter. See, now if you look at that on the level of spheres, I'm calling them, or Brahmandas is the Sanskrit word, you have the realm of Indra and the gods, the realm of the Munis and the Siddhis, and the realm of the humans, animals, plants, insects, and so forth. These are the three worlds that, as usually classified, and this is where transmigration goes on. This is where the wheel of birth and death is kicked in. This is where the Kala chakra is spinning. I just borrowed 3 ways of describing from 3 of these darshanas. Lord Buddha would call it Kala chakra. This is where time is spinning. Time seems real. So around and round you're going in this wheel of time, you see, and you're going from heaven to earth to hell, or from physical world to etheric world to celestial world and back. That is, your ancestors and the gods and so forth, or the lower gods, are also on this wheel with you. They're holding realms for you to move into and out of, see. And that's fine with them. It's just like a king wants more subjects. See, a dominator wants more countries under his control. The gods want more people too, see. There's nothing unusual about that. Oh, come into my realm. You'll have fun here, really. Only one problem here, I'll tell you that later. You have to return here after your fun is over here, after your merit is exhausted. Dun, 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 dun. Both of these concur. After your merit, your karmic merit is exhausted, then you fall to earth again. Buddhism and Vedanta will express it that way. So beings, that's where beings, so many beings are being born. It just doesn't come out of nothing. You're not created out of the union of 2 drunken people who met at a bar and happened to get together and have sexual relations that night, mindlessly. Thousands of people coming out of that. God forbid. 50 people getting killed at a bar last week. They're missing the point. See, what are you doing in a bar in the first place? Why aren't you meditating upon these realms within you? See, learning the Dharma, finding a teacher. You're happy in an atmosphere like that? Well, first-class fools. See, suffering, endless agonies, and never know when death will strike and catch you off guard and by surprise next. And where you'll end up, which womb of matter you're going to come into next, animals, humans, even lower, based on your merit or demerit, as the case may be. You think the God of karma isn't absolutely exacting? Reminds me of her saying, Holy Mother, she says about karma, it's inscrutable. Karma is inscrutable. You have to pay for the use of this body to the last penny, she said. Oh, isn't there some way, Mother? Some other way? Well, the grace of God, maybe, you see. Maybe. Plea for the grace of God. See? Whatever the Divine Mother wrote in the Book of Destiny, she can also erase. I like that teaching, and all of you should too. Whatever the Mother of the Universe wrote in the Book of Destiny for the soul, she can also erase it, you see. But other than taking refuge in her, how many people do that? You see many people taking refuge in the Divine Mother of the Universe? He did. That's why he came, to show us about Mother Kali, to bring Mother Sharda, so that now 5 million people have taken refuge in her. That's not bad in a short amount of time. Made a difference to those 5 million. But how many billions, you see, are here? So they have karma as their God. That's what I'm saying. bars, football fields. Those are karma fields. Karma shaya. Father of Yoga says that. There you do actions in an unconscious state and you reap rewards that are of like kind. And it's at risk you put yourself. So these are risky worlds. Now, before we end, I really wanted to get to this column. The rest of this is for you to look at either after the class or on the YouTube when you see it again, or when it comes out, or looking back on this class. But let's look at from the bottom up this time. Oops, since we went from the top down. At the level of the lowest chakra, which is at the base of the spine, which is Jambu Dvipa, the physical world according to Tantra, which is the Burloka, the realm of the humans and animals, insects and so forth, which is also the sheath of vital energy, sheath of physical energy, the Annamaya Kosha, the sheath of food. There you get this. Those with sinful karmas gravitate to the 7 lower worlds as ghosts and asuras, eventually gaining a chance for a physical birth again. So there is lower places to go than humans and animals. Asuras are demonic beings. Ghosts. Do you believe in ghosts? India believes in ghosts, but they're not like Halloween ghosts or Hollywood movie ghosts. They're projections of a deluded mind for a period of time. In fact, if you want a connection between the physical ghosts that you see in the haunted house, there is one. That being appears in that house where it died, and it's seen doing the same thing it did before it died. See? So it's just, its mind is remembering that house and that event that it experienced, and its subtle body, its etheric body, appears there. And someone's looking on and said, I saw a ghost. See? But that ghost has nothing to do with them. They just saw this flash of a mind thought that took a form, and it took such a form that it was so powerfully based in fear or in dread or in horror or in whatever, that it appeared back at that same old place again. And that's what you call a ghost, you see. But that mind is dwelling at a different level, and it's not a conscious level in this case. So there are beings that have been embodied to free those souls. Free the fallen and the lowly, they call it. We could sing about it, there's songs about it. They come here not for the rich, not for the famous, not for the enlightened, because the enlightened don't need a doctor. They come here for these beings who are suffering the effects of their own deluded thinking. That's about the best way I could put it. These are not lands under your feet burning with hellfires. These are in the minds of these people that they're suffering these. Just like if you're in a prison and you're in a cell, that's you. You see, that's your suffering life in a prison cell. There's nobody but you there, and you're the one that's suffering, and you've created this hell. It's just like that. These minds are living at that level. So this is a downward trajectory, you see, and then a trajectory into the patalas. But if a person is going to work its way back up the chakras or into these higher sheaths, remember we said you want to associate with these sheaths of food and energy, but you don't want to identify with them, because there are higher places to identify with, which are going to be much more beneficial for you, you see, above the line of demarcation between spirit and matter. So here, this world, for instance, at the Svadhisthana, transmigrating minds attached to the earth plane revolve between the first 3 worlds. That's put very succinctly. From heaven to earth to hell, or from Bur to Bhuva to Swahar and back again, they're revolving. They'll enjoy a little heaven, they'll come back to earth, enjoy a little earth or hell on earth, as the case may be, and they'll be on this wheel of time. Kala Chakra, Buddha called it. Or Maya in Vedanta. The next level up at the Manipura, which is right there at the gut, this center, see where food is digested and where the fetus is formulated and so forth, Pious people with unfulfilled desires arrive at the Svarloka and get reborn on earth to fulfill them. Desires have not been transcended there in this lower heaven. See, in this celestial world. Going to heaven is not the goal of the Vedantist, or of the Tantricist, or of the yogi, or of the Samkhya yogi. No. Certainly not of the Kundalini yogi. Heaven is not the highest goal. It's to be transcended. And if you do get beyond this dotted line on the chart, you'll find that there is a higher heaven. There it says, beings possessed of love, nonviolence, equanimity, and virtue rise easily to the higher causal realms, transcending rebirth in the physical, astral, and celestial worlds. My favorite teaching of today, that is, of this class right now, my favorite teaching lies right there. Of course, we like samadhi and we like bliss and we like all those teachings, but there, I think, is where we point to when we want to save the fallen and the lowly, or even the people who are attached to heaven or ancestors. That's where we would point to. See? They have love, they have nonviolence, and they have equanimity and virtue, and these don't. Or if they do have any of those, they don't have it in very big supply and not very long lasting. So, do you like the teaching? Love. See, those who have love, come here, right? Swami Krishna used to say, those who love me, they come here, to me, to my heart, to your heart. See? These others, they don't come. You see, they rotate in the three lower worlds. They transmigrate. So, non-violence, also a beautiful teaching. If you have violence, you're probably not going to get past this line of demarcation into a higher world, because you still have this idea of birth and death going on, of resentment, jealousy, vendetta. See, you have vendetta, not Vedanta. See, you have amoha, not aloha. You see, how many ways can I put it? You see, so you want to rise deeper and have nonviolence, equanimity, and virtue. Of course, you would inculcate those in you in this lifetime, right? This isn't the teaching of past, present, and future that you can contemplate later. You have to bring this forward, pay it forward immediately today, see? So, am I nonviolent? Is my mind equanimous? Do I have virtues, qualities that I can rely upon? Do I have character? Look into yourself, inspect them. If they're missing, get them, see, through teachings and teachers and Dharma. If you have them and have them in spades, you're well on your way outside of the three worlds and on to transcendental reality. See, hopefully the highest, samadhi. Every soul will have to have that one day. At the level of the throat and third eye, the realm of the seers and the sages, those souls nearly free of all desires for the realms of embodiment go quickly to the higher worlds, there to merge with Brahman in due time. And that really is the main purpose of the Vairagya rather, he being the highest. His purpose is to get you, those beings who dwell in Brahmaloka, to get them past that last vestige of desire for form into formless Brahman. The best way I heard it described is, in Brahmaloka you're living in a hut on a beach, you see, beautiful ocean there, and you come outside of your hut and you jump in the ocean every day. So you're slowly developing fins, as it were. You see. You're getting used to the water. You spend more time in the water and less time in your hut, like we did when we were surfers back in my 20s. Sometimes our feet didn't touch the sand all day. We were out in the water so long. So that's why this teaching appeals to me. But basically, this hut is Brahmaloka. It's the last vestige of form. And you have to get used to the formless ocean, so you spend more and more time there. Well, there's a soul there on the beach guiding you to do that. I want to come back to my hut. Do you really? Can't you just stay out there? Why don't you stay out there all night? Mahapralaya is happening. Stay out there all night. You'll be fine. You can do it. If you want to come back at sunset, fine. So the idea is this, metaphorically, of course, is that the soul still has a little bit of attachment to the higher realm. So kind of described there very nice, you see. Free from desire, nearly free from desire for the realms, go quickly to the higher worlds to merge with Brahman. And then finally at the level of the crown chakra, illumined souls transcend the Brahmaloka and merge with Brahman. A good way to end our second full class here on the transmission of Swami Vivekananda and how to qualify ourselves under the rays of his wisdom and his Vairagya-like tutelage. May he guide us and protect us all. Move us swiftly through all the worlds, even in deep sleep tonight, and have that definitive experience of samadhi which he is so well schooled in, and his master as well. So here we'll end with a chant. Om Bhadram Karnibhihi Srinayama Devaha Bhadram Pasyema Akshabir Yajatraha Stirai Rangaish Tushtuvam Sastanuvir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indra Vridashravaha Swasti na Pusha Vishvadevaha Swasti nastarksho arishtanemihi Swasti no brihaspatir danatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we hear with these words, may we hear with these ears what is noble and uplifting, and may we see with these eyes what is good and spiritual, and may we, while worshipping the Lord and Mother of the universe, with healthy minds and bodies, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.